Hello, and welcome back to another amazing episode of Purpose Driven Wealth. So, in this episode, we'll delve into another conversation on financial identity. I will talk about the wealth within versus the wealth without. So, here's the premise of what I want to share with you, that at the core of wealth creation is this concept that wealth is a product of value. Wealth is a product of value. Let's sit with that for a moment, because money, finances, they don't flow randomly. Wealth flows towards value. Yeah, wealth is drawn to value. And if you want to understand wealth, it is important that you understand value. And I'll be talking about two kinds of value. There's two kinds of value here when we talk about value. There's the value within and the value without. So the value without, that is what the world sees and pays for. Yeah, it's what people pay for, what is exchanged for money. And then there's the value within, which is the internal sense of worth and capacity that a person carries. So the value within and the value without, and the relationship between the two is important to understand, because most people entirely focus on the value without. When you talk about wealth, they focus on the value without. Value without refers to skills, credentials, businesses, investments, things like that. But when you think about it, the value within matters more, because the value without, it flows from, it emerges from the value within. I will show you how in a moment. But let's build on this. Let's build on this, because as you look at the wealth within and the wealth without, the wealth within, what we've stated as the money, the assets, the income, the businesses, etc., that is the form of wealth that is visible. It's what people can see. But the wealth within is invisible. Think about it. The wealth within is identity, self-value, self-belief, self-discipline, self-mastery. They're internal, they're not seen, but very important. Very important, because that inner value, that internal value, that internal wealth is the true gold mine. When harnessed properly, it produces wealth on the outside. And so that's why we say, when we think about cultures and nations around the world, when we think about African people, for example, if you wanted to destroy a people, when you destroy the identity and self-value, then you diminish their capacity for wealth creation. You hold them back, yeah? You hold them back from wealth creation, which is why it's also important for different cultures that want to grow wealth for their people to address the issue of self-value first. Economic empowerment is not sustainable if it's not first built on self-concept and self-value. So this is the gold mine, yeah? You see, I don't know if you've noticed, some people lose money and they recover quickly. Some people lose money and they never recover. The difference is that internal value, that internal wealth. A person who possesses internal wealth can lose external money and they will rebuild. They will rebuild because what it takes to build is within. And that gold mine, that internal gold mine, is in their thinking, is in their discipline, is in their belief, is in their creativity, their resilience, their culture. And so you see people who, for example, build wealth again and again, even after they lose. The wealth was never the money. The wealth was what was inside of them. This is critical. But just like there is wealth within, there is also poverty within. Yeah, poverty is an algorithm, just like wealth is an algorithm. There's a system within that produces poverty. And so that internal poverty shows up as insecurity, for example, chronic insecurity, fear, anxiety, an anxious relationship with money, hoarding and scarcity thinking, the inability to take risks, things like that, dependence on other people's validation. So when somebody has that internal slavery, then it stands in the way. And so it becomes that the poverty within that produces the poverty without. A person may possess even some riches outside, But as long as there's poverty within, it will diminish that. It will diminish that wealth through stress, through sickness and disease, through broken relationships, self-sabotage, through poor decision making. All of those things will come to eat up the riches that are without. So the internal environment, therefore, is very critical to the wealth creation process, which is why it is important that we invest. Yeah, we invest in our internal value, even as we seek external value. Think about your heart. Think about the human heart like a bank account. And every time when you make deposits of value, then that value increases. The deposits in form of your words, in form of the beliefs, in form of experiences, thoughts, habits, and as you do that, you're nurturing the gold mine within that then determines the wealth outside. The deposits that you make each day on the value within and strengthening your identity and self-concept and self-value then strengthens your heart bank, becomes richer, which then affects the rest of your life. The heart acts like a magnet. The heart acts like a power center that shapes the realities around you. But if you deposit the opposite, if you deposit the criticism, the self-rejection, the fears and all that, you create the poverty within. But if you deposit truth, if you deposit purpose, you deposit discipline, you deposit focus, true identity, faith, responsibility, then you build the wealth within. You build the wealth within. And just like financial deposits, small deposits, they compound over time as you nurture. And so it is important that, as you seek financial freedom, wealth creation, seeking to master your money, to understand the concept of value. Once again, wealth flows from value. And the value you carry then affects the world around you. You teach the world how the world should treat you. You teach the world the price point that you will accept. What price point will you accept? By your posture, by your standards, by the boundaries that you set or fail to set, you teach the world what they should value you. And so in those ways, you see that internal value creates external value, which by extension then ends up creating wealth. So if the world undervalues you consistently, it is often because somewhere along the line you have accepted a lower valuation of yourself. Your lack of clarity about your worth and your contribution to the world can result into a diminished view from the world, which has a way of translating into the opportunities that you are able to embrace and create for yourself, and the growth that you are able to achieve. I hope this has struck a chord with you. If it has, I would like to invite you to comment on the comment section below. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't, and look forward to other videos where we will continue to build up on these conversations. Thanks for watching.